Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a pair of pink flamingos in some water. So we'll be working on some light reflections, and I'll show you some quick tips, a short mini lesson for feathers. Got my husband Mark with me tonight.
Hey there, everybody.
He's man in chat, so if you've got questions while we're painting, you can ask that, and we'll try to answer. Let's get started. Alrighty, so I'm using a 9 by 12 inch canvas today. This is a Fredrix mixed media canvas board. Haven't done anything to it, just was kind of sketching on it to see the placement, if this was going to be big enough. I contemplated doing it on a 12 by 12 to give me more room for the feet, but I think they're going to fit okay. But if you want more to see more of the leg, really in our photograph, their legs are cut off right here anyways, so it probably doesn't matter that much, but if you want like reflection and whatever, you could do it on a 12 by 12. All right, as far as brushes go, we're going to probably do our water with a Filbert. So I've got a couple different sizes of Filbert, and then I've got some larger brushes, flats, to block in, but these are on my 6100 series. The Filbert, the small Filbert, is a Dakota from Princeton #2. So, and then for the flamingos themselves, you're going to want to scale down to a smaller round brush. For most of it, going to be using the 4 round, and I've got a 3/8 inch and a 1/4 inch angle shader, and then potentially a script liner and a round. Also, these are the VelvetTouch from Princeton. So I'll mention the brushes as I use them. So I'm going to show you a little mini tips for feathers and for fur. So it'll be kind of a fur and feathers mini lesson tonight when we get a chance to show you that. I'll go over my colors. Carbon black, burnt umber, burnt sienna, quinacridone magenta, cadmium red light, cadmium yellow medium. You could use yellow, cadmium yellow light also if you wanted to. Phthalo green yellow shade, phthalo blue green shade, and unbleached titanium, titanium white right here, and then gloss glazing liquid down here. All right, if you're new to our shows, welcome. Glad to have you joining us tonight. We just paint through. I haven't painted this ahead of time, so I just talk you through the whole process, and we chat about stuff, and that's about it. Hopefully, glad you're joining us, and thank you to our hundreds of regular followers who come back every week for more punishment and to chat with us. And
sometimes about non-art stuff.
Sometimes I do get comments sometimes about, stop talking about random things.
So if
I'm
you
like,
don't
well,
like friendly banter, if you're one of those.
Go ahead and switch back over so I can see my canvas there. There we go. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we did a beach scene, ocean scene, about, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago, something like that, where we did these lines. Our mini lesson was about perspective mark making, so doing the marks smaller in the background and getting larger in the foreground. And this is a perfect example of that in our water here in this example. So we'll be doing some of that as I put this on. We're going to be making smaller marks in the background and then larger watermarks in the foreground. And I'm going to just do the water to start with, get that drying, and then we can work on our feathers and do some other things. All right, so for the water, there's going to be 2 main colors that we're seeing. We're going to see the reflection of the land and a reflection of the sky. So, and in the reflection of the land, generally you're going to have some parts of the water visible because it's darker too. So you may see into the water a little bit more. So it's usually going to be like your green. It looks like this pond is kind of a green water looking. And then the reflections of the sky are going to be either like a sunny blue sky, or sometimes you'll see clouds or white in those. Just depending on what the sky is like. So in this picture, we've got like a green for the water and a light blue for the sky. And I think I'm going to kind of pretty much stick to that. I have another photo of the same pond in a different angle, and there's a little bit more blue to the sky sections. And so I think I'm going to use that one a little bit too, and do a little bit more blue in those sky reflections instead of the bright white, just white. All right, so the green water, we're going to use phthalo green, and I'm going to mix up a fairly good amount of this because I'm going to need quite a bit of it to cover my whole canvas. So I'm going to just mix in kind of probably 2 parts green to 1 part burnt umber. And then I'm going to take whatever's left of my brush here after kind of mixing that up. I'm just going to scoop it up and just kind of smush it down so I have a little small area. I could be mixing this with a another brush or a palette knife. Thank you. That's the word too. So if you want to do that, you can. All right, then I've got like a yellow green here, and I'm going to use burnt sienna with the yellow. I added yellow, phthalo, or cadmium yellow medium, and then the burnt sienna. So I'll have kind of 2 colors of green, and this is just going to be kind of the colors of the water and the foliage and trees around the pond. So that looks pretty good. May hopefully be enough. All right. And then we'll use white and other to mix in with this because I don't think it's quite this dark over here in the green. So I'm going to get some unbleached titanium and add some of that. And then I'm going to grab up some of this dark and add it here. All right, so let's just go ahead and start. I've got kind of all these colors on my brush. Just gonna go ahead and start adding these up here. I'm gonna brush it side to side. And I'm not gonna worry too much about the mark making yet. I think I'm just gonna get some color down here to begin with so that we have a layer to work with. I think that's a pretty good color, so it's kind of a medium green color. I think that's going to work. And I'm going to do a little bit darker on this side here. How's chat doing tonight?
They're doing well.
Good.
Everybody's very friendly and welcoming.
Good, good. Good.
I'm dealing with allergies.
I am too. Bad today. Been
So if I sound funnier than normal, that's why.
Because you can't breathe through your nose.
Exactly.
Can't breathe. Hey. So, I relate. I'm not making fun. I'm imitating myself. All right, so just kind of dabbing that on, trying to get that on there. That's looking pretty good. Getting a little bit of variation in my colors. Now I'm kind of run out of my mixture, so I'm just gonna wing it here and mix it on the fly, but you get the idea of what colors I'm using here generally. So and the reason I'm using kind of this more like green and blue, I think I'm going to use the a split complementary color scheme, so the orange red of the birds and a green and blue green, or green blue, for our two complementary colors. That split complementary, straight complementary would be this green blue green with the orange red of the birds, but then split complementary goes on either side of that just slightly. So I'm trying to kind of stick to that. So kind of stick to kind of just a basic green for our background water, and then our reflections will have more of a green blue.
So what are we?
What?
Are we split complementary or are we direct complementary?
Oh, I don't know. We're pretty close to direct complementary because I don't know that we're not very similar in a lot of ways.
You like tea?
He likes coffee. You like mornings. I like evenings.
I like dark chocolate.
I like dark chocolate too. I like art. You like spreadsheets.
Are they even on the same wheel?
I don't think so. Engineering and art. A match made in heaven.
It's always satisfying when you can come up with a really good formula that works.
Down here, I'm going to go a little bit lighter, adding a little bit more of that unbleached titanium to my brush, and there's a lot more of the water in this area too, so, or a lot more of the sky, I should say. Sky reflections are bigger in this area. That's what I meant to say. Getting some unbleached titanium, phthalo green, yellow shade, and burnt sienna. Seems to be making kind of a nice neutral down here. Okay. There's not a whole lot more I can do to this right now because I just got to let it dry. So while that's drying, we can start on our little mini lesson, I guess, or I can have you take it if you want to do.
I can do it, right?
Yeah, go ahead and do it because I feel like I want to do the water and then do because it's going to take a while for that water to dry. So I'm going to clean my brush out here really good, because this is all I'm going to really need it for. I should have given it to Mark, because I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to do our reflective areas. I think the color that I liked the most with the water was the phthalo green yellow shade and the burnt sienna. It gave kind of a soft color, and then the unbleached titanium with it gave kind of a softer green than the unbleached or the burnt umber with it. I think it's because it's a little bit more red, and the red and green offset each other well. It does really well. We'll probably use it a little bit, burnt sienna, with the sky color, the reflections of the sky color too. Let me show you what we did this weekend. I need to make sure my hands are clean so I don't get dirty. But we worked on this. This was my bonus video for our $5 level patrons. So we have a level over on Patreon. It's a totally separate site, but it's just a way for our viewers to get extra content that is way too long to do on YouTube. Just and support our channel at the same time. So we still have our Tuesday shows for free here on YouTube, and about 700 free videos from the past here on YouTube that you can watch. But if you want kind of more content, more detailed content, I should say, more advanced lessons, Patreon is where you'll find that. And this was our most recent one that we just did on Saturday for our $5 level members. And then this one is the one we're working on Thursdays. On Thursdays I have, so the bonus video is once a month, just a single video that's usually 4 hours or longer. I think this one was close to 5.5 hours, something like that. And then this one is the challenge video that we do on Thursdays, and I work with my Facebook group, my patrons from my Facebook group for the $10 level, and we do these, yeah, there we go, thank you. Extra challenging videos. So these ones are called a bonus video because they're like 5 hours ish, and then these ones are like closer to 10 hours. They're a lot longer, and they are broken up into their own little levels. So anyhow, if you're interested in any of those, you can check out my website or go to patreon.com/AngelaFineArt. But on my website I have a page that is, thankfulart.com, that is exclusive videos page, and you can kind of see what we've done in the past and see what's available. And we're going to have a new website hopefully up soon. I don't know, I keep saying that. I've kind of given up on it, but
I'm not holding my breath.
should be soon. Yeah. All right. So this is dry. Thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
For drying that for us. And so now
skills.
You got mad drying skills.
Yeah.
I don't know that you ever had picked up a hairdryer before you started working with me.
Oh yeah, back in.
That's true. You were an
the
80s baby. That's right. You had the hair, feathered hair.
Yeah, I had feathered hair. I didn't have like 80s rocker hair, but.
No, he had a really nice, like, feathered.
Part down the middle.
You had the Fonzie hair, kind of.
I can
right?
bring it back.
Was it fun? I don't know.
No,
Maybe not.
Fonzie.
It wasn't quite Fonzie. It was, I'm trying to think, John Travolta hair. That's what it was. You had the Saturday Night Live John Travolta hair. It was perfectly parted down the middle. And
I'm bringing it back. That and the mustache. I'm bringing the 80s back.
A little Magnum PI's back, so maybe mustaches will come back. All right, so mixing up a little bit more of this color. It's pretty spotty, so I'm just mixing it up so I'll have it over here. I added a little bit of yellow with burnt sienna and green and the cadmium yellow and then the unbleached titanium. So I'm going to have this over here to work with. And then let's mix up some of our sky color. So I'm not going to need that much blue. I don't know why I put that much blue out, because this Phthalo blue is super highly tinted. It don't need a lot of it. Burnt sienna, a little bit. And that just tones it down to more of a natural color because it's so bright. You could use cerulean blue for this too instead if you wanted. Cerulean blue has a little bit of this blue-green color as well. I think that's going to be pretty good. And I still have a little bit of this green in my brush, and I kind of deliberately did that so that it's also got a little bit of that water tint. All right, and I'm just going to start to make some marks up here with my Filbert. I switched to a 6 Filbert here. And I'm just going to kind of go through here. I'm seeing some different marks in my picture, and I'm going to mark. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the background here because our birds are kind of the star, so I don't want to, it's not a water lesson. It's kind of, I want to leave room for what we're, our birds. So, but it's kind of doing this kind of a ripple effect where it's sort of rounding out here. You'll still see that on still water, kind of some reflections doing different things. And I'm just using the edge of my brush, and the Filbert is making the marks really nicely rounded. I'm not pushing down very hard for these little ones that are far away, keeping them fairly small. And then as we get closer down to the bottom, we'll start to get bigger and longer brush strokes. Just working my way down here. Just basically leaving the negative areas of the playing around my green. Get a little bit more white here. So I'm just going to kind of pick one that seems the most prominent, and I'm not obviously going exactly by the picture here, but if you wanted to, you could trace out your watermarks so you had a more accurate, exact replica of what is happening in the water. I think that once we get kind of this main area in here, it'll look better. And there's a lot of little ripples right around where the legs are coming in. And I think we're getting it fairly close.
I think you missed a ripple right there.
Missed one.
It's in the middle. Right there, in the middle.
In the middle. The middle. What is that? Yeah,
What's that TikTok lady you
the
like?
TikTok lady. Yeah, that I like to watch. Karen. No, Kara. Oh gosh, I can't think of her last name. Shoot. I'll have to look it up. I'm terrible with names. Terrible. But anyhow, I won't even try to explain it. It's not going to be nearly as funny explained as, but there's a video that we like of hers that I put on every now and then if I want to laugh. Well, now it's going to bug me, so I'm going to have to...
Sorry. You have to look it up.
I have to look it up. Oh, shoot. I'm going to turn the volume off. Kara Morgan. Phew, shout out. I was trying to shout out, and I did not do a very good job there. Sorry,
Come
Kara.
back in.
Yeah.
So right there in the middle,
So yeah, just
we'll start the joke again.
she's she's got a duet where there's a guy and he's watching a video and they are stirring popcorn and they don't stir the middle, and he's like, just stir the middle, and she's like, yes, the middle, thank you, and she's kind of talking over it. I don't know, it's funny, it makes me laugh every time, so I'm gonna eat. The timing though is perfect. And she's got,
So if you're into that thing, look her up. She is very funny.
yeah. Okay, sorry. See, this is the kind of thing that I get comments about.
I don't know why.
I don't either. I don't know why I get so.
They can fast forward. You can just hit that little skip. It goes ahead like 30 seconds.
There's plenty of other videos out there. They don't have to be mean to me.
Yeah, but what's the fun in that? Come on.
All right, so it's starting to get that feel for water, I think. It's starting to.
Make sure they subscribe.
Yes, thank you. Now I'm adding more white to kind of the middle area of some of these ripples. And just expanding out. And this can be done in both directions. So we'll do the green over some of this too. So I'm going to go a little bit more over some of the green areas maybe than we need to. And then we'll cover back over with the green some things. But having that concentration of larger ripples down here is already kind of pulls the focus down here and makes it obvious that this is our focal point, and it's closer to us. It feels closer because of that. And I'm not trying to make surf, like on our other one we were kind of making surf. So these ones I'm keeping fairly flat because I don't, and not leaving a ton of texture because I don't want to it to look like these are like waves or something. If I was doing waves, I would be adding the shadows and things like that. Remember when we added a shadow underneath our highlights in the beach video that we did? We're not adding the highlight or the shadow underneath our highlights here because this is not a wave, and we're not gonna get a shadow from it. It's not lifted off the surface enough to give a shadow. That makes sense. So now I'm just going back in with my green, adding some green. And this is kind of that light green. I still have a little bit of the highlights from the blue in my brush, so it's kind of tinting it some too with that. Just getting pretty close to where I want to be. You can use Zinc White too if you want to. That's a little bit softer white, and it's more transparent. So if you want to use that, you can. Just want to make sure that my transition is smooth here. So I've got some of these coming up, and then the next one is kind of coming down. So I'm trying to kind of transitioning these that are angled up with these that are angled sideways a little bit better here, so that it doesn't seem as abrupt. Let me get a little bit more of the green. This is where I was saying you can go back over your highlights, so I'm kind of going back in between and over some of these highlights and going to just soften some of these transitions a little bit. I think I got a lot of repetitive shapes here, so I'm trying to kind of take some of those out. Some of them were not quite the right shape. In the highlights, I mean. Okay. Getting that darker. All right, I'm pretty happy with that, I think. I'll go ahead and leave that. We can mess with it more once we get our birds in if we want to, but we'll let that dry. Might have you dry it again, or well, I guess we can just let it sit because I'm going to do the fur and feather techniques. Apparently I don't know how to spell because I can't seem to try spelling it twice. First time I put the Q right here for unknown reasons, and then second time I didn't. I left the I out. So it's there, but sometimes, like I swear. All right, so for feathers, fur and feathers, basically, it's all about the overlapping. So you want to start with your undercolor. So whatever color you're seeing on your bird or animal that is kind of your darker undertone. I usually go for kind of a mid to dark tone, not the darkest dark, but something kind of in between. And I'm just going to kind of do a section here. With kind of a dark red. So for our bird here tonight, we're doing kind of a, obviously the flamingo. So I'm going to start with that color. This will give me kind of my dark undertone to work with. And if you don't have this, you won't have the contrast in your feathers. For fur, generally it's going to be, a lot of times it's kind of a brownish color. So I can use like burnt umber here, and I'll do burnt umber for my fur area. And I'll just let that dry while I'm working on my feathers. Okay. So for feathers, I like to use a brush that's shaped the same as my feathers. So in this case, Filbert is going to work great for us. And we'll just do these kind of mid-size feathers. You can also use a round brush. That also works well. Sometimes you'll have feathers that have a little bit more of a point, so you'll want an angle brush, like on a chicken or rooster. You have these kind of spiky feathers that happen. But basically, you're just going to want to match your brush to roughly the size of your feather that you're painting, and then that way you can work and add lots of feathers on top without having to do a whole lot of work. The brush is going to do the work for you. So as long as you get this undertone right and you layer these correctly in the right order, it's not that hard. So the next color that I'll be using on my feathers will be kind of a mid-tone feather, and it depends on your bird. Obviously, some birds will have multiple colors on there. This bird, our flamingo has some black in there and has some darker reds, things like that alongside the pink. But basically the next layer you're going to do is going to be kind of a brighter tone on top of this. And what I'm going to do is figure out where my overlap is and do the underlayers of feathers first. So in this case, I'm going to have some kind of reddish darker feathers underneath, so I'll go with those first. And even though I've got this underlayer here on already, sometimes what I'll do is when I do my underlayer, I will go in the direction that I'm seeing my feathers laying underneath. So let's say these ones are going like this. I'm trying to get a red, and I don't know why it's not turning red for me. I think I have too much of this other color in my brush. But basically, you're going to do your darker underlayer first, because it's going to generally be the what is underneath all the rest of the feathers. You're going to do the lowest area, usually kind of the from back to front. The feathers will lay on top of each other, coming down from the head down, and they'll overlap as they go down. So you start from the tip of the tail and go up towards the head. And there will be some areas that don't match this, and you just have to look for that. But basically you're looking for the feathers that are underneath, and then you're going to put your next layer on top of that. So I did my first layer of feathers there that's darker, and then I'm going to go in the direction that I'm seeing my feathers lay and do my next layer. And then the idea is to cover this transition each time you lay down a new layer of feathers, and you're going to want to find spots. You don't want to go on top exactly. A lot of times I'll go in between, kind of stair step it, or like bricklaying, in between the open spot, and that way I'm getting kind of a good overlap. And just keep going. And each time you want to just cover just where those other ones ended. Some feathers are going to be much longer, and as you go up, generally they're going to get lighter in color. This is very, very generalized, so don't, this is not for every bird, but this is just good little practice to try. Get a feel for doing these feathers. Try it. All right, you can work on some of these outer areas if you want to, and do some of them coming off. Sometimes the wings will be open, like on a hummingbird, and you'll see some feathers coming off, or you'll have a wing open. You can do another color. Let's go ahead and add some yellow here. Let's say our yellow is transitioning And so if you do have a color transition, you just have to figure out where that is happening and make sure that you are changing over to that color. And generally there'll be like a little bit of an area where there might be a mix of both. So I'll kind of usually do that. I'll take, like, say if I want to end with my yellow, I'll take some of the yellow and mix it with my red and do a layer with that. And then go into my yellow. See that? And that gives it a softer transition between your colors. Right, I've done a lot of bird tutorials, so this should not be new if you've watched any of those, but it's just a fun little thing to try at home. Do these little mini lessons. It gets you working on stuff, you know, get you trying things. And then once you get this done, then, like, say I decide I want a little bit more highlight on some of these feathers. I can't see them as well. So what you do then is just load the very tip of your brush with just a little bit of the paint. And I just kind of very lightly run it through the color that I want, so that it's not fully loaded. It doesn't have a lot of paint on there. And I'm going to hold my brush more upright, and I'm just going to kind of flick it on the parts that are overlapping. And it helps if the paint's not too wet too, because then, and you really want that underlayer to be dry too. So let me get a little bit of this white and just use white. There we go. See how it's kind of just picking up on the very tip of the feather? So sometimes your bird will have, you know, like another color that's just on part of the wings. So this is how I do that, and just kind of very lightly. So I've already got the feather in there. I'm just kind of changing the tone of the very tip of it. Changing the color just at the very tip. But I still have the structure of the feather in there. Like that, all right? And if you have a section where you need to add more, you can do that. You just may have to do all of the feathers in that section again, you know. So if you have to add in a section of feathers somewhere where you've missed them, or you want to add over, you may just have to kind of transition it into what you've already got. And I'll do that sometimes with like a glaze, or maybe do another color over the top of what I've got in there. You can see I'm kind of trying to, this happens a lot in roosters, where you may have just a couple feathers in here that are different, you know, than the others.
Are you using a Filbert brush right now?
I am using a Filbert.
And what size is it?
This is a 2.
Number 2, thank you.
Yes, 2, and it's the Dakota, but they have, don't think that it comes in the 6100 series. That's why I'm using it. So generally I would be using my 6100 series, but I don't think they make the 2. I think it ends with the 4. Okay, so I'm adding too many layers here. But you get the idea. Okay, and then generally at the top of the head, the feathers will be smaller, and you won't have as much worry about this. But what I'll end up doing is doing these little teeny tiny feathers like this, and still giving it a little bit of direction, but much smaller feathers and more tightly packed, so that like this. So and this is usually like in the transition areas right under the chin and the back of the head and that kind of thing. You'll see these little teeny tiny feathers like that. All right, I should have done a couple longer ones, but you get the idea. Okay. And then for fur...
Reminds me a little bit of the angel wings that you did too.
What? Yeah, I did angel wings. That's true. That would be a good one to do. So for fur, I generally like to use like a Filbert grainier or a Willis blender or something like that that will give me a little bit of texture or a little bit of line that I can work with. So with the grainier, fan brush, that's the one I'm thinking of. Fan brush works well for fur too. Like something like that, like a small one. But the key with fur is to keep your paint fluid. So when you're using this grainier or any of these like fan brush things, where you've got these really fine little hairs that have to be separate for it to show up. Excuse me. I snuck in. I've been doing that all day. Sorry. Same thing with the other. You want to start at the bottom and work your way up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll get a little bit of this darker fur. So I'm going to work my way up right here. And then as I'm overlapping, I'm just going to try not to get any solid areas like that. And the key is just have a really light touch. Hold the brush. I hold the brush almost on the end and just barely tap. But you can see how I'm doing the same kind of overlapping as in the feathers, but it's not as obvious usually. With fur, generally you're wanting to lay down kind of ripples long ways in the fur. So I'll put in my highlights, and then if I have any areas where I have missed, and you can see I've done it over the top of this dark, which is really important to have a nice dark area underneath. But I'm just trying to create texture, right? That's texture. I don't have to even really have a ton of detail at this point, although I'm getting pretty good detail with this brush. And then what I'll go in and do another layer of even brighter highlights, and this time maybe leave some of the darker highlights, or like on a tiger or something, you might have dark spots, or leopard and things, you would be leaving those areas. So depending on what kind of animal you're doing, you may have areas you're working around. You see? And it's all about kind of getting your and sometimes I'll turn it on its side. Sometimes you just want your transitions hidden, basically. You want the fur to look like it's laying like this, and not in any kind of obvious stripe or pattern of fur, as far as that's not intentional. Basically you're not wanting to have your brush strokes all lined up in a way that is unnatural. Sometimes you do want stripes, but it depends on the animal. All right, so you get the idea there. And then with fur, what I usually do, and with feathers too sometimes, is I'll go back once it's dry and I'll add some glazing. And so I might decide that I want like this bottom area. This is too wet to do any glazing right now, so we'll have to do that later if we want to. But basically, okay, so there you go. That's really bad. Looks really bad. Oh, he's posting these little mini lessons, and they always look like so janky. Like, what is she teaching people? Oh, sorry. I know. Yours is going to be way better than mine. I'm just trying to give you kind of some ideas of things to practice. That's it. That's all those are. They're not supposed to be pretty. They're not supposed to be finished painting. They're just supposed to be little techniques that you can work on in your free time. All right, so we got our water here. That's dry. It's looking pretty good, I think. Let's go ahead and sketch in our birds. So our birds and our legs, from where they go down into the water to their body, is about equal size. And I want his body to be right about the halfway mark. So that's about going to be where we need to be, right there. And leg down here. So body there. I can't really see what I'm drawing, can you? And he's coming up to about the halfway mark. Up. And in, excuse me, right in here. Get the hiccups now. Something like that. I think. I like that neck needs to be a little bit longer. We'll see. All right, and this one, his head is right here. The beak has got kind of an axe shape almost. Man, he's just being a grumpy old man tonight.
He was so polite. While you were teaching the fur there, he came over and he just kind of gently booped me.
Uh-huh.
And walked over to the door like he had to go out.
Oh.
And then he immediately went over and jumped on the couch to look at the window because
Gotta check things
he could
out.
hear that dog barking.
Oh,
So that's what he was doing. He's just making sure.
they know that this is our house.
That's right.
Okay. This one is turned towards us a little bit more, so its feathers are a little bit more rounded. Right in here, there's a little seam for the wing. I don't think I left enough room for the tail. I'm gonna have to scoot him over a little bit, maybe. Just so I've got room for the tail to go in right there. Okay. And then the legs come back into the water right there. This one's coming down. Looks pretty good. I'm gonna bring this one's neck down a little bit more, I think.
Sure.
Okay. Bring the neck down a little bit more. There. And then the back comes up and down. It's basic, kind of an eye shape there for their bodies. This one is a little bit shortened because it's facing us. It's a little bit more rounded on top and bottom, but similar. And the leg kind of right down the middle, just about. The leg kind of comes down here. And this one's going off. This one's all right. I think that'll work. Hopefully. Let's see. I'm gonna get my 4 round here, And I'm going to mix up some of the color so that I can work quickly.
We have just over an hour till Oak Island.
Oh, have we spent an hour already? Wow. Doesn't feel like it. Bless you.
Thank you.
Okie doke. So I'm going to get my main color for the birds is going to be this, the Unbleached Titanium, or the Cadmium Red Light. I'm going to add white to it. And add just a little bit of my yellow. That looks good. Alright, then I'm going to get some more of it and a little bit of my magenta and some of my burnt sienna. And this will be kind of my darker areas on the shadows and things. And get some of the magenta and cadmium red and a lot of the white and do a highlight color. I think I want a little bit more of magenta for the highlight pinks, just a little bit more of a brighter pink. I'm going to need more white. Okay. All right, that looks good. That's pretty close to what I want. So just a nice salmon pink. So I've got 3 tones here. Dark, medium, light. And we can add other colors actually, you know, as we go, but these will be our main colors for our birds. Actually might use this Filbert that I used earlier. I'm going to use this for the body, the bigger one, and then I'm going to use the smaller one for the neck. So let's go ahead and do, like we talked about, maybe do kind of a mid-tone for the body. That'll give us plenty of color to work with.
And you're painting in the direction of the flow of the feathers,
I am,
right?
yes. Yes. So any of this that is, you know, visible will already have those the feel of feathers. I've got this weird hair that keeps sticking out right there. It's driving me crazy. It just dried funny. But it's not funny to me. All right. So for the top, I'm just going to use a little bit of the lighter pink. And I'm going to use the edge of this brush and draw in my feathers. Coming around and going off the bird there. And then this one has the wings coming around like this and the feathers coming down. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of put them in as I'm seeing them, as I'm filling this in. And then there's some underneath here that are coming out. And these feathers are coming this way, so this is where the wing kind of overlaps, and there's this little dark area right there in the middle. It's left dark. Right. Looks good. We'll let that dry there. Go ahead and use this for the head too. Just gonna smush it down. Use the edge of it. Like that. Looks good. Okay, let's use the same color over here. So this one is gonna look bigger, even though it's not. It's just the orientation of the body. We're getting more of the side view. Go ahead and start with that neck. And then right at the back, it kind of curves right back up. Okay. How's everybody doing? It's very quiet in here now.
I think everybody's doing well.
What are you doing over there? Aren't you typing?
Somebody asked if the question was from the beginning of your art journey, Angela's art journey, did you ever think that you would be able to teach a class? So we're asking if I would be able to teach a class.
Mark?
Yes.
Oh.
I said no. I tried it once.
Short.
You make it look easy.
It is harder to talk and do something than you think. Explain something as you're actually doing it. I just took the easy way out and cut that hair off. Probably would have eventually, but I wouldn't have been able to use this brush today. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so there we go. Coming down. And then underneath there's this nice dark area. I'm going to even get some burnt umber. It's right under here. It's really dark. You got to get that in when you're putting in these initial layers, because otherwise it's harder to do it once you get the upper layers and the details on. So put in these nice dark areas first if you can. I'm going to go ahead and use this dark color on the neck too. All along the bottom there. All right. All right, let me get the kind of lighter color and go ahead and come down there's just a couple of feathers right there that are coming down from that dark area and coming out.
So real quick on the
top. Mm-hmm.
So what is the red that you used in the body?
Cadmium Red Light.
Okay, thank you.
And it had some burnt sienna and a little bit of magenta in it as well. But Cadmium Red Light is the main color that we're using. Alright, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and clean that out. And I'm going to go to switch to the 4 round here. Make sure I set my brushes over out of the water with lots of water in them. Like I dip them every now and then. Clean them out as well as you can, but leave them really sopping wet and just set them off to the side until you can wash them. Don't let them dry out with the paint in there though. Okay. So this guy's head is right in here. Kind of right here. Drew his neck a little wonky. Right up underneath the head there. Getting that burnt umber and red. A nice dark shadow coming down right there. So kind of like that. This one's head is turned a little bit more towards us, so we're seeing a little bit, not so much from the side like this one is. Like a 3/4 turn. Okay. And then beaks. I'm just going to grab the white.
Okay, so I need the color list again. So got Cat Red medium,
Cat Red Light.
Cat Red Light, okay. Quinacridone Magenta
Yep.
and white.
Yes. And burnt sienna.
Okay, perfect.
And then in the dark areas, I'm using unbleached titanium, or burnt umber, I mean, in there. All right, get more of that red.
Very good, thank you.
Area right there. You're welcome. And then black on the very tip. it's easier if you just mix up a bunch of it at first, but do write it down in case you do run out, because that will happen sometimes. I'll run out and not remember what I used. So I used to use a notebook all the time, and occasionally I still will do it, especially on our challenge videos where I'll have, multiple weeks of painting, and I have colors that are pretty unusual and have to mix them. I'll do a little color notebook where I'll write down formulas for different colors that we've mixed and what I used, and then that way when I go back to do it again, I can remember what it was that I mixed. No, that's not it. There's a color string activity. That was one of our very first things that we did. Forgot about that one. That was on the round canvas. Okay, that's the only one that I can think of. Okay, just keep going back to the painting here. Distract me. Yeah, I got a squirrel big time right there. Okay. Get some of that darker orange. Just gonna bring that in underneath the beak right here. Actually, I don't think I like that. I liked it a little skinnier. Okay. Probably made that beak a little bit big now that I'm looking at it, but I can make the head a little bit bigger if I need to. It's fine. Okay, getting some white here. Once I get that kind of initial color down, then I can go back in and highlight some areas. Right there. Just coming down the top of the beak right there. And then there's a little dark area right here where the nostril is, I guess. And then that. Probably the mouth right here. Curves up and down to kind of the middle right here. And then this kind of brightish red color right through here. Alright, I like that. I'm going to get a little bit of yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of white, and just have like a little bit of a light yellow color here for the eye. Let's go and do this one's eye too. It's going to be right in here somewhere, I think. Maybe farther back, actually. I need to do the beak on this one, so get the white there. It's a really V shape right here that happens. And then this comes down. Get some of that lighter red right there. underneath the black, right on that. And then that wind, that is just drying out my paints really bad, blowing right on them. Right. Yeah, this is kind of fun. I like painting birds. They're just really animals in general. You know, they have kind of just a basic shape, but they're also unique, and you know, each one has got its own coloring. Even in a, you know, certain species, you can have variations. So there's a little bit kind of like flowers in that way. You know, there's a lot of room for interpretation in your own artistic what you're seeing, you know. So don't make it have to look like mine or even the reference photo exactly. Just do what feels right to you. I'm gonna get a little bit of the black with I try to do the circle around the eye. We'll see if I can get it with this little brush here. I think so. I'm gonna dab in the center of the eye and then do a little circle around it, just really gentle. Let's do this one. Dab the eye, a little bit of a circle around it, just light. Okay, and then I need the nostril on this one, so I'm gonna get a little bit of gray. Do the nostril right here. And then get more white. Can you get that to turn off? Is that possible? Thank you. All right. Pretty much.
You paint on your sleeve, then you're getting it all over the...
Oh my God. How long has that been going on?
No.
A while. A long while, because it's all dry. Great. I did this last week too, didn't I? Because I was joking about the texture that I was getting on my sleeve. We went over textures. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so no more long sleeves. Unbelievable.
A shout out to Ange for catching that.
Thank you, Ange. Unreal. Well, you can see how to fix it now.
I'm going to
if
add
that
flowers
happens
there
to
or
you.
something.
Might have to add flowers. Do a big hibiscus.
So do you,
Yeah, I mean,
are you able to get acrylic paint out of your clothes?
yeah, you can get it out. It's not easy, but you can use alcohol, like rubbing alcohol. It'll kind of break it down and it'll come out. And there's other things you can use, like Goo Gone and different. But find Goo
We
Gone.
used that soap that one time. They sponsor one of our videos now.
Lava. Yeah, lava soap. Mhm.
Lava soap water.
Yeah. All right, so we're using black and white and then a little bit of the red. I'm going to use this on the legs to do the legs. And oh my God, I've got a lot of mess over here to cover up. Unreal. How did I miss that?
I was focused on the beaks with the side camera, and you were focused on the beaks. And
Yep.
oh well.
That happens. This is why I don't do watercolor, though, because if I did watercolor, this would be ruined. The acrylics, it's not so big a deal. We'll just put some more water back over it, and it'll be fine. Watercolor would not be... You might be able to lift it, but still, you could really ruin a painting pretty easily. Go. Voila. Get some of the white, blue, and right back in my highlights, and we're good to go. And then the kneecaps are kind of a brighter pink, more magenta color. Go ahead and do those. They have these big tags on them. I'm not going to paint in the tags that are in the way. A little bit of white highlight color there. All right, that worked. Let's do this next one. Go a little bit darker on this one. Might go a little darker right there too. Time is it? Okay, we're still time. Good. It's amazing. They're big body and little teeny tiny legs like this, you know. But they're built for standing around in the water like this. If you had big, thicker legs, it'd be harder to wade through, you know. They have much more bulk to move. Just got these little teeny tiny sticks that I can glide through the water. I'm going to have this one kind of going off canvas. And this leg is coming forward at the knee joint. Get a little bit more magenta here, darker, whoop, with the black. Not that much black. There we go. And then right where they go down in the water, I just want a little bit of a white ripple right there, just to kind of indicate where they're going in. That side, I'm not seeing it, but just kind of right where they go down in. All right, and then you can get some of that darker green too and kind of come around it with that too. All right. So the only thing we have left really is just to kind of finish up some of these feathers. So on the bird itself. Get a little bit of the shadow color here because I painted over it with my sleeve in this area. Okay, starting at the tail here. Let's go ahead and use this kind of lighter toned, these two lighter toned ones. And these feathers are longer than the ones we did in our example, but they're going to be done just the same way. We'll do the first layer there, and then as we get down subsequent layers we'll add lighter colors. I'm mixing up an even lighter brighter pink. Okay. And then where they overlap right here, talked about the overlapping colors, so we'll get some of the darker tone, start mixing that in. I want to use a little bit bigger brush. This one is just a little too small, I think. I'm going to get some of the darker tone here. And just overlap back over. And I think I want a little bit more magenta in some of these. This one seems like it's got a little bit, some more magenta in this area. So just going to do like that with the magenta. See how that'll kind of push back those colors. And let me show you the glazing on this while I'm thinking about it, because otherwise I'll forget again. So I'm going to get some glazing medium, or just water if you don't have glazing medium, whatever color you want to use, and you're going to go over your feathers. It helps if you've got a transparent color to use. You can see how it just kind of tints it. So I use this when I want a shadow in a certain area, maybe. And then I'm going to use my paper towel or your finger and just kind of brush over to blend it in a little bit so you don't really see where it starts and stops. But see how we darken that area up in the feathers. And then you can also use it more strategically kind of around the feathers. So if you want to say, like, you know, add a little darker area of shadowing or shading, you can do that as well and kind of outline it with it. We did that with the rock wall last week, or the week before, whenever that was, the week before, when we kind of, you know, shadowed around things with kind of a transparent layer of paint. So, and then you can always go back in after the fact if you decide, you know, you want more highlights, and you can add your highlights back in, but you've already got that glazing there. And so it's just kind of a way of kind of bumping up some shadowing in certain areas of your painting, giving a little bit more contrast and depth. And when you do a combination, look how much more vivid that area that I glazed does than even this area over here, because you've got much more complex colors going on and more layering of the colors. And the same thing with the fur. So I'll glaze a portion of the fur. Usually I'll glaze it a shadow color. Sometimes I'll tint it like a yellow to change the color of the fur. So if I wanted a more yellowy tint, but look at this, is going to make it come to life. I'm just going to kind of do half glaze and half not glaze, and you can see the difference, because what it'll do is just kind of bring all of this together. It sort of merges it and makes it really, really beautiful. And then you go back over it with your highlight, just a few, you know, little areas of highlight, and that's all you need at that point to kind of finish off your fur. And just very strategic little areas. And when you're doing the fur too, I didn't mention this, with the feathers, tend to lay a little bit more in pattern, so it's kind of okay to have them sort of pattern. But fur, you tend to have a little bit more overlapping in general, of, you know, doing like this crisscrossy thing instead of having them all lined up like this. So when you're doing your fur, you know, kind of every now and then kind of put one brush stroke in that is kind of going off in a different direction, and that way it'll make it look a little bit more natural. But so there's with the glaze and without the glaze. So, and you can see that that area looks much more rich with color. You know, all of the light areas have this mid-tone now, and then we added just a few of the light areas again. So with this, when the initial layer, you're just laying down texture. So you want lots of the light and dark. You want it to look kind of striped like this. And then once you lay down your glaze over the top of this, then you can go back in and add just a few bright pops of highlight, and it just gives it that extra depth that you can't really get any other way. Most all of your really realistic lifestyle or wildlife artists that I've seen will do that, use that technique of glazing over the top of the fur, just to add depth. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up our birds here. We're almost done. A few more highlights here. I'm going to go to a little bit bigger brush so I can move quicker. But let me know in comments. I've been getting a lot of good comments about it. If you can think of any other little mini lessons that you'd like me to throw in here when we're doing these. I like to try to get them to kind of correspond with what we're doing. Obviously, we haven't done fur in a while, so I just went ahead and lumped it in with this one. I figured it kind of fit. It's very similar techniques, at least for the overlapping and kind of things. These feathers are going to be coming down. And every now and then there's like a little bit of a gray bit. So I'm going to add some gray bits in here. And then they get shorter as we come here. So we're going to merge this section with this section, this back section with this. Kind of change the direction just a little bit. And it's okay if you don't see all the feathers. Like, not all of the feathers are going to, be visible individually. Sometimes you'll just see, kind of like on the neck, just see a long bit of color, It doesn't have to have all the individual feathers showing. I'm going to do a few kind of textured brush strokes, but that's about all I'm going to do there. Maybe a little highlight on the top of the head. Make sure you've covered all that green up with your bird too. I'm seeing some of my highlights of my water through my bird here and neck. I don't want that. Make sure I got all that covered up. It's turned out pretty good. I'm liking these. Kind of fun. Don't think they're... there is a little bit of finesse here where the change of direction happens, so just gonna watch for that. But for the most part, I think these are pretty straightforward. I do have another flamingo that I did a few years ago that is just the body and the head, and it's a little bit more basic. So you could try that first if you're scared of this one, or whatever. You get what I'm saying. Intimidated. I have plenty of things I'm intimidated to paint. Tanks, yeah. Exactly. And if I'm working these feathers are obviously, I'm kind of going opposite direction here. Into some area that I've already done, then I can just go back in and kind of go over it a little bit. And if I kind of do my brush strokes in a sort of like that, you know, I can kind of fit them into feathers that are already there. So I don't necessarily have to do all of them in order, you know. I can kind of skip around a little bit, although it does make it a little bit easier if you work back to front, but sometimes it, you know, you can't help it and you're overlaying other colors and things and going back in and adding other details, and so you end up having to kind of work back into an area that already has that overlapping happening. And so in that case I just kind of use my brush and it on its side here like I've been doing, and do my brush strokes so that they kind of tuck in between each other. Then I don't have to overlap the whole layer everywhere. I think I'm going to bring this back up a little bit more right here. Get a little bit of white. There's a little bright area right on the top of the wing right there. I'm going to push this area back a little bit. I think I'd have it too far forward, so just push that open area back just a little bit. And then just try to get a nice transition into some of the brighter red right here at the neck. Get that brighter cadmium red magenta color. Right there. Okay. We're almost done.
For reals?
Yeah, for reals.
Ooh.
Do you know who did the super chat last week that we forgot to mention?
Gosh, I hope I do. I have the question, but I didn't get the super chat. So no, I don't remember.
Well, thank you to whoever it was. I'm sorry we didn't shout you out, but
I completely blew it. But not tonight. We're not blowing it tonight.
okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm kind of glazing here, sort of, with my magenta. Not quite glazing, but sort of. Like, not quite because it's not fully opaque or transparent. But, okay, go. I'm light. I'm going to add more highlights here. Go.
Super chat.
Woohoo! Super chat.
All right. Let me get this fired up so it works. Some of them have fallen off already. So we'll do the ones that I can do from here for sure.
There's that many that...
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
So we have one from Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
And she had a Shiba dog shaking his hips, saying
Oh.
thank you. So thank you to Karen. And then we have one from Cindy. And Cindy says, long time.
Was able to catch a live. All good. Yay.
Yeah, so thank you,
Glad
Cindy.
to see you, Cindy.
And then we have from Laura. No
Oh,
message,
thank you,
but
Laura.
Laura's just
Wow.
low key like that. So thank you, Laura. And let's see here. I guess that was it. The questions fell off. Okay. So
Got
those
'em
were
all?
all our super
Okay.
chatters. Yes. So thank you.
Thank you so
That's
much, guys. Wow, that's
amazing.
great. Very sweet.
And then I have 3 questions.
Okay, go for it.
Make
I'm
sure
just
I don't-
repeating kind of what I've already done here, adding highlights, going back in, adding, just trying to transition. So nothing fancy here, just...
Okay, so the first question is, can you tell me what should I do if my painting after varnishing has bubbles in it?
Ooh. Varnish it again. And a lot of times it'll smooth out those bubbles. But it probably, what happened is you overworked it. The bubbles can form when you brush over the varnish too much. So, and you can, I would do the whole thing, but it could also be I don't know, varnish can be tricky. So, I would try to figure out what it was that happened to it. Or you may just use a different... Also, one thing that could have happened is if you shook up your varnish just before you used it, that could cause bubbles too. So you kind of have to let it rest if you had to stir it or anything. So make sure that, that you do that and just do it again. And it should... if not cover up, but at least mask some of the bubbles by having a fresh layer over the top. And if it's a removable varnish, I guess you could try that, but I wouldn't. You could damage your painting. I wouldn't do that unless you knew what you were doing. I've never done it myself, so. Varnish technically is supposed to be removable, but it depends on what the product was too. What product did they use for varnishing?
It didn't say.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I don't know. I would try just doing it again and using, making sure that it's not, the varnish didn't have bubbles in it to begin with, before you did it. Like, don't shake it up just before you use it, and then don't over blend it.
It said Liquitex varnish.
Liquitex varnish. Okay, yeah. So probably just had some over brushing is probably that's one of the things that happens with the Liquitex varnish, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did miss a super chat.
Ooh,
People caught it, reminded me. So sorry about that. So Susan.
thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh, hippo character going really fast on his chair, propelling the chair across the room. Nice. I like it.
She didn't write all that out.
She didn't? Okay.
No.
But
But that's what
it would
was
be weird
doing.
if she did, because I would be like,
yeah.
I don't know what she's trying to say, but
She might be talking about me.
she might be saying I need a diet.
Or me. All the chocolate and
Yeah.
stuff people have been sending us.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we thanked Karen for her
For the
jerky, didn't we? I
Yes.
think that was good.
Yes. Okay, another question was...
I'm using white here now just to really bump up some of these, just to give them really bright highlights. Just a couple. Go, sorry.
was how often should we be replacing our brushes? Mine seem to fray. And is there a fix for that problem?
Yeah, if the softer the brush, the more likely it'll fray more quickly. And if you're using it on, for certain techniques, it could fray more quickly. Like dry brushing will damage the hairs, if you're using it, or these brushes here, there's certain techniques that I won't do with them. I won't do anything that requires like me to scrub with them or anything like that. I don't generally like to use them for dry brushing because they have a softer bristle. So I'll save my dry brushing or things for bristles that are meant to be beaten up. So that could help with that, give you a little bit more life to some of these brushes. Get a brush or save one of these brushes that is frayed and use it when you need things like dry brushing and stuff where you're going to be kind of beating up on the brush a little bit. But just, after a while they do break down. So, the tack-on brushes, these synthetic brushes tend to last longer than natural hair brushes. I find that the 6100 series will last a little bit longer for me than the VelvetTouch, even because they're a little bit more firm bristle, or not bristle, hair fiber, I guess is what they are. So depends on the brush, but if you're painting a lot, I go through, let me just say this, I'm painting 2 to 3 times a week, for several hours at a time. And, I'll go through probably one of these every 2 to 3 months. So they're not going to last me a few years because I'm doing dozens of paintings with them in that time period. So but you should, if you're painting once or twice a week, you should get a few months worth at least out of a good brush, depending. If I really baby it, it could last a year for me. But I'm pretty tough on my brushes, so yeah, I go through probably at least 3 of these a year. So one every, and that's me. That's on my schedule. So depends on how often you're painting, Okay. All right.
We got one more question.
Okay. I'm going to glaze over the top of this while we're talking with a little bit of blue. Okay.
And then somebody asked, have you heard of a technique where you use the transparent paint first and then you paint over with opaque?
You paint
with like a transparent, and so with a transparent paint first as a main color, and then go back over it with opaque.
Yeah, I've seen that done quite a bit. Yeah. It's just another option. There's so many ways of. A lot of times artists will do that if they're leaving just a little bit of that showing through, if they want kind of like cool textural elements in their paintings, or like little abstract areas where you can have like I don't know. Yeah, no, I've seen that. Yes, though. Yes, that is an interesting technique. I don't tend to do that, but I like it when I've seen it done. I'm using the little bit of magenta and a little bit of this blue, and I'm gonna glaze over this guy here and just add a little bit of a darker shadow on him and on him too. And this again will kind of unify certain areas of your painting and kind of bring it all together. I think I'm going to use a little bit of it in my water too. No other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. I think pretty happy with how this one's turned out. I'm going to do a little bit of glaze in my water here with this blue. Just do it in some of this green area up here looks a little plain. adding a little interest to it. But I think that I like how it turned out. I went a little softer with the highlights than it's in the reference photo because I felt like it was fighting the highlights on the bird. And so I wanted the birds to stand out from the water a little bit more. So that's why, if you're wondering. But you can go brighter with that white if you want more contrast with your water, you know, more of a obvious highlight. I might do some kind of in the middle where it's not right up against my bird. But I didn't, this is not a water lesson. I didn't go into a lot of detail with this water, so don't look too closely to it. It's not my best water. It looks okay though. It's fine. I was just more focused on the birds today, so. But hope you guys liked it, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Come back. We'll join us for next Thursday or Tuesday, I should say. I'm gonna put a little pink in the water too. Why not? Maybe some of this bird.
You already did that and you took it off.
I know, but I'm gonna do it underneath the bird.
You painted
where
with your
it's supposed
sleeve
to be.
this week. That should have been last week during the textures tutorial.
I did paint with my sleeve last week, don't you remember?
All right. So then you did it again this week, but then you erased it.
I know, I did erase it.
And then you're putting pink back in. I'm so confused.
Yeah. Yes. So, but yes, we'll be back. We'll be painting some. I'm gonna just add little dots of white here in my water for little highlights. I think that'll help. Yeah, that's definitely gonna help. Kind of just give it a little sparkle. We'll be painting flowers, and so I'll show you some different flowers, different techniques for painting flowers. So that'll be next week. We're looking forward to that one. Hope you guys join us for that. And yeah, thanks for watching with us tonight. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Bye.